click, buy, deliver. With remote purchasing from the 2-time Motorcycle News Dealer of the Year, Colchester Kawasaki. Proud sponsors of Chasing the Racing.
3, 2, 1, and welcome back to Chasing the Racing, episode 137, and we're down at Honda HQ in Louth, and we're delighted to be joined by team boss Javier. We're just discussing is Javier, is that where's the name?
Father Spanish,
right?
So
okay.
yeah, Javier Emilio Beltran.
Right, because you get Harv and Harvey over here, don't you?
Yeah.
And
I don't mind either way.
Were you brought up in Spain?
No, I was born in England and then spent a bit of time in Spain when I was younger, and then spent most of my childhood in Cheltenham and Gloucestershire.
There we go. I tell you what, I must kick this off with a personal apology to your mind straight off the bat. Doing my homework for the show, which I normally don't do. I was watching iSuperbiker that you appeared in a couple of times, and it was just straight off the bat. I came in, hello, how we're doing, and it was just like, you're looking well, and it was unfortunately like I got right on my back foot immediately, and it was just like, oh, you've lost a lot of weight, and it's a case of you're a tough cookie, mind, aren't you? What you've been through since iSuperbiker. So even before we go down that route, let's talk a bit like how you got to become Harv from Honda. Were you Harv anything else before Harv Honda?
I've been with Honda almost for 32 years, so it's a long road.
You don't look old enough to be saying 32 years at Honda. Quite
a while, isn't it? So, stems right the way back from motocross, from my time then. So
you're more of a motocross man before the tarmac scene.
Definitely. I started off in motocross. I used to race myself, and unfortunately I had probably more determination than skill, and broke too many bones.
How many bones?
And
every race I know.
Wrist, arm, both wrists, leg. But my left leg was quite bad, and at the time, a good friend then, and still, I guess, in a way, Dave Watson helped me, got me out of Shrewsbury Hospital, took me down to Chertsey where I had my leg straightened. It was in a bit of a mess. And
were you racing for official Honda?
No. It was all amateur then.
Right.
Yeah, I was just amateur. I had a Mako 440 and a Kawasaki 500, and
we've just been looking at one of them actually, because there's somebody near us that's put a KX 500 into a what
it's
chassis?
like a hybrid chassis thing.
A 250 chassis.
Because when did they stop making the CR 500s and stuff like that?
That's way back in 90s, late 90s, but 2007, the last sort of 2-stroke 125s and 250s. God. But it's a real shame, because a lot of people growing up now aren't going to see or even get to experience a two-stroke at that level.
Are you still into the motor, like in terms of passionate about it? Do you follow the British sort of stuff? Yeah,
follow the British. Obviously, Dave Thorpe's team, that's all under sort of our umbrella and under sort of myself and Graham Foster-Vigers with Honda UK. So we look after that. Obviously, their riders with Tommy Searle, Jake Hay and Jake Nichols.
Is Tommy Searle as straight as he normally is? Because everything that he does on social media, like Billy Bolt from a barway, he just seems so straight. He doesn't even realise he's funny. Most of the time, is Tommy Searle's actually like that?
Yeah, he is, to be fair. We had an event at Guy Martin's track. We had sort of helped him with that, and so we had Billy Bolt there. Well, Billy Bolt was there, Jay Hay, Tommy Searle, Jake Nichols, and Tommy's full of it, isn't he? He's great character and great person. Bloody ride a bike bloody well, and you look at then him and Billy were messing around over the jumps and everything else, and but when you go back character and how they are, two very different people, but
very much so. So how's that looking, that project then, now that we've got the other side of it? Because Guy's trying to turn that into a GP circuit. How likely is that looking on your side?
I think, putting the track back to how it was back in the late 80s, early 90s, when we used to use it and train on there with Honda riders and various other riders. I think it's an incredible job what he's done, and the crew that he's used to do that. For sure, it's an unbelievable circuit now, but it just needs to mature and grow and weather a bit and everything else, and get some championship rounds there, and with a view, I'm sure Guy wants to get a Grand Prix there.
Did that used to be like just Honda's? Did Honda own the track?
No.
Oh, so you used to just use
we
the
used
track?
to use it, yeah.
And it's quite a it's a topic that's like massively up for debate, contentious in terms of like road racing team bosses and allowing motocross training is probably the best form of actual physical training, but obviously it comes with a massive risk injury. Where do you sort of stand on it as a team boss?
I don't mind the riders using it for training, but you can ride around at a sort of percentage or a level if you like. But if you're out at the track and you're in race mode type of thing, the risk is a lot higher. And I've seen it time and time again. Davey Todd last year away in America broke his collarbone, and
really
just before the season.
Just before the season. Even Tom last year tweaking his knee.
Of course he did, yeah.
So these things happen, but they happen in all forms. Whether you're on a trials bike, out mountain biking, on a road bike, on a push bike, whatever, things can happen. And from a training point of view, and keeping your eye and keeping you sharp and keeping your actions, it's brilliant.
I was about to say, if I had to push into a corner for one answer, I was begging for a job, and you had to write your perfect contract out, would you prefer to rule out that side of it? If I had to push in a corner,
no. If they use it, if they ride a motocross bike, and they use it in a way to enhance and help with their training and flat tracking and everything else, it's really hard to take that out of the equation. You've just got to be able to have the sort of goalpost there, or the understanding of what level you're prepared to push at.
Definitely.
in training and in practice.
Very difficult ground, isn't it?
It is. It's massive. I'd hate to turn around and say, right, you're going to ride on the short circuit, but you can't ride a motocross bike again.
Mm-hmm. It does come massively to like the sort of, I don't know if you'd say maturity, but it's the judgment of the rider, and like you say, how hard to push in certain, like which risks to take.
Yeah.
Because you can't.
And the nature of the circuits. If you go to a circuit that's full of massive tabletops and doubles and whoops and God knows what, you're asking for something to catch you out, aren't you?
Yeah.
But if you're at a safer track in a way where probably the condition of terrain is probably hard going for you, rather than a flat, hard packed track, it certainly induces and gives you a bloody good workout, that's for sure. I mean, look at Tom and Rio and Keo this year at a track in Colchester, in Market Raisin Road, rather. The guys go there quite regular, and quite often I've gone down there with them. And Takumi's riding in full leathers. He's got full leathers on because he's using it as a training.
Does he wear an airbag suit? Because he must just ride around. No,
he doesn't wear the airbag suit in it. But it's that type of it. He'd rather be protected in that way.
Yeah.
Just use it to do 4, 5, 20-minute motos as pace that he can stay at, just for the training side.
He must be the fittest guy on the grid, because that'll be the hardest thing to do, ride motocross and leathers.
Certainly.
Do you still get the itch yourself to ride?
I do, yeah. I'd probably have a go now and then on my own when there's nobody around. No, definitely.
Like half spot now. Everyone will be out with the cameras.
You can't sort of ever take that away from me, can you? The problem is, I'm 57 now. So you turn that back and look and think and remember what you were like at a younger time, and your actions and your ability and everything else.
You bounce a little bit better, don't you, when you're younger?
You bounce a lot better when you're younger, yeah, definitely.
So going back to, you were racing amateur motocross, you ended up spanning yourself a few times, and then what was the introduction to get involved with Honda UK?
Well, it started off, so Dave helped me out, got me leg all sorted out. So at the time I was at a butcher's and racing and doing all sorts of things, and the butcher said to me, like, do you want to carry on racing, or are you going to stay doing this? I said, well, I want to go racing. So an opportunity came up to work with Dave Watson sort of part-time with his training schools in the late 80s. So I did that for a couple of years with him, and also working at the butcher's and doing various other things. And then an opportunity came along to mechanic for Ryan Hunt. So,
sorry, pardon my ignorance. Can I have a little bit background check on Ryan Hunt, motocrosser, man? Right? Yeah. Like world level, was he? Or
British Championship, right? British Championship, 125 Grand Prix and stuff. But British came over here from South Africa, rode and did British motocross, and at the time it was Worcester Supercross and things like that, and Western, and God knows what else we did.
So you went into the mechanic side straight away at this point. So was this just...
Yeah, I think, moving from working on your own bikes and then working with Dave, doing all the training schools, and then, building engines and doing things at a level that you always wanted to better yourself, don't you? You always want to do more and learn more. So an opportunity came along for me to do that, and, sort of took it by the horns really and got stuck into it. So.
And then from the motocross side of things, what was the initial introduction onto the tarmac?
So the race team was based in Louth. Neil Tux was team manager, and the race team was based in Louth. And at the time then, you had Alan Carter, you had Fogarty and Hislop, and all in the same workshop. And if you can imagine 4 benches, and there'd be me with motocross, be Alan Carter and Hizzy with 2 strokes on the opposite me, and then the RC30s and everything else on the other benches. So
it must have been hell on. With dust, sand flowing in from that.
No, the workshop clean environment, so everything was clean outside and then brought in clean. You never have a filthy dirty bike come in there.
I bet close, because every time I've power washed my motocross, Dean's motocross, poured it in, there's still muck everywhere. So fair play to you, do a thorough job then.
Yeah, strip it all down and clean it all off, blow it all off and everything else, and take it in and work on it. But what for me was the 2-stroke side of it with the RS 250 and everything else. That's what sort of really threw me into the road racing side. And at the time, Ray Hughes was mechanic with Alan and Hizzy and so on, and just got into it there, and it just morphed from being in that environment for 3-4 years whilst I was doing motocross, with the view that I could see probably more of a future for me going into road racing. So, and hence then the team was then formed with the Kawasaki, like I'm talking to you there, with the teams and everything that were formed then, the Castro Honda team with the World Superbike.
Oh, yes. Beautiful that.
Yeah, so that formed. And
just before the podcast, we were just mentioning about a few previous podcasts ago, we had James Tosland on, and obviously incredible story from how he started, and then the tragic events that happened in his personal family, and then the doors. Like 1 year of road racing CB500s, and then the doors opened up 17 years old to join Castrol Honda, to travel the world on a salary, like sort of living the dream back then.
Yeah.
And I guess, did your paths kind of cross then?
Yeah, massively. James was, as he said, this young 17-year-old coming into the team, and quite funny stories over the years, and incredible talent and motivation and everything, and a nice person as well.
So how did that decision process happen then? I'm just wondering, who was it your call? Whose call was it to go?
No,
I want him.
Neil Tuxworth. Neil, yeah.
It's a hell of a talent.
Neil
spot.
with some sponsors and partners that were involved, and it all came together, and next thing we know, we got this lad riding off a CB500 and jumping on a 600 and traveling the world.
What was your initial thought at that point? Like before you heard the name Tosland, you think, 17-year-old kid, he must be something.
Yeah, I think it's like anything like that. You see these lads on track and you watch them. You see quite a few, and many riders that have got some brilliant racecraft and strategy, and that can progress, within a field and everything. And they stand out. There's something about them that make them stand out with everybody else.
Yeah.
And way back then, in early 90s, it was obviously, I wouldn't say tougher, but it's different. It's, I'm not going to say it's harder or easier, but it's different. And, for sure, when James came on the scene, he had unbelievable talent, and unfortunately got a couple of nasty injuries and things like that. But
involving yourself on one occasion, wasn't it? Would you like to share that with me?
There's 2. He's got a nasty scar underneath his chin. So... unfortunately, we went out to Italy to test in Misano and ride there, and there was a particular jet ski company that we used to go to. We were there quite often. Anyway, we went out and it was a bit choppy, and sure enough, James hadn't been out there maybe 2 minutes and gone out quarter wave, gone up, landed on the jet ski, cut his chin open.
Wow. We should have had this interview with you before Tosland. And what's that scar about, son? What's all this about?
Wow. One thing that massively stood out from the interview with James is he openly sort of talked about it, the fact he didn't really enjoy his racing, and he didn't do it because he wanted to do it. He felt like he needed to do it, and it was almost like an escape from all the sort of hardships in his life. And obviously he talked through about winning the world championship at 23, youngest even today he's still the youngest person ever to win the world championship, and he didn't really enjoy it all the time, and a very sort of different dynamic to most people who are in the paddock. It's very much a family thing, and for most people, people's parents were either involved or used to race, or uncles or whatever. And for James, it was very much him sort of by himself, and sort of, I guess Honda sort of took over him as a bit of a family for him to bring him through.
I think so. You know, everybody rides and races for their own reasons, and quite a few people are you know, play the cards close to the chest, if you like, why they're doing it, what motivates them, what actually, you know, James probably didn't allude on that to many people back then, if I'm honest. I think him and Neil had quite a good relationship, and he had a sort of a close knit of friends around him that, you know, probably understood more what was going on in his life than what a lot of people knew there and then.
Sure.
And, you know, fair play to him for doing and achieving what he achieved with all that playing on the back of his mind.
That's massive, yeah.
You know.
But I'll tell you what, going back to your previous point, and I think you jumped the gun with your answer as far as my question, is it like picking someone now, like was it easier then, or is it easier now? And you said you kind of went, you can't really give that an answer. But for me, looking on the outside looking in, every year has its tougher times. But the way the money and the sport's going, you know, you've got lads in the 300 class, and everyone's so tightly knit together. And you're looking at Stock 1000, like what Stock 1000 6 years ago, it was a lot more spread out because of the cost. But now it just seems it's beyond amazing how tight everything's getting, including the British itself.
It is, Tom. You know, it's difficult because to work with a rider, one person for 1 year, it's extremely difficult. You know, to develop, work with, and you know, from a Honda point of view, from the PR and everything with it. So you're always looking for the next younger rider coming through, you know, to work with, develop with, and Tom Neve, you know, is a prime example with putting him on a superbike, you know, a few years ago, which was just a stand-in, if you like, just to, you know, in at the deep end, really in at the deep end. But then working with him, developing with him to work on the Superstock. So last year on the old bike, first in on the new bike in 2020, going down to the last round, you know.
Was he on your dartboard by any chance? You know what I mean? There's that maths teacher.
No, I said to Tom was, you know, we want you to go in there and we want you to develop and work with, you know, and to build on that. And unfortunately, 2020 was a season cut short, 6 rounds.
Yeah.
Very hard to gauge everything on, you know, and everybody so intense in that small period. So we said to Tom, you know, prior to the last round, I said, look, whatever happens here, but still I want you to do this again for next year and run a full season and win the championship or whatever we do.
Yeah.
And, you know, that progression with the view of then winning the Superstar Championship and then moving on to Superbike. And that was the carrot, if you like, to him. But it's working with him, with his training, his fitness, his everything with it. And now, you know, he's in a really good place. Lots of good people around him. You know, great.
You see, like Honda, the only people who've actually done that recently. You know, the fact of like shown progression. No, what
expensive.
I bet it is.
From a team's point of view, it's a lot easier to say hand pick someone like the sort of more finished article. So it's very much like sort of fair play to the likes of yourself, and there's other people that have done it, but that sort of take a bit of a risk on someone that sort of needs that finish and sticking with them. And obviously it is it's challenging at times, and like you say, it's very expensive. It takes years, but a lot of people look for the easy option in terms of teams and just look for, like, say, some pick somebody who's established and take more of a safer bet, but to stick with, say, Tom for those years and kind of build him and the team together and to stick with them and give them an opportunity in Superbikes is massive credit to you.
Thanks, Richard. But you know yourself, you know how expensive it is at all levels to race. You know, from your fuel, from your tyres, crash damage, building the bike. It's not cheap anymore, you know. So the fact of developing and working with Tom with a view to take him into Superbike, and then if you see this year, 2021, the introduction with Ryo Mizuno and Takumi Takashi. So Ryo is under the Honda Superbike. I'll get it back.
The Japanese champion.
Sorry. So Ryo is over here with the Honda Superbike Challenge program for us. Okay, so that's developing within Superbike.
Right.
So now Tom's gone from Superstock to Superbike. He falls into that category as well now.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it's about developing the riders. And again, you know, you touched with Tom, but Ryo and Takumi coming over here for 2021. 23 years old, Ryo, first time over into the UK, living in Louth, travelling everywhere on his own, living on his own. Massive culture shock to both of them.
Question: does he like England?
I think he likes England.
He just turned up in Louth and went, I was expecting Hogwarts or
it's a long
Mary
way.
Poppins.
It's a long way from your perception of being in London or Manchester or Leeds or anywhere else like that. But I think the challenges for both of them, you know, put yourself dropping you off in Tokyo and expecting you to do something or have a job or go and race, and then it's huge culture shock. Huge. And you know, for Ryo to get used to riding with Pirellis this year, first time using intermediate tyres, getting used to the tracks, getting used to our bike, the fact that in Japan, you know, they ride with electronic aids. Over here there's no aids on the Superbike.
What tyres do they run?
Bridgestone.
Bridgestone, right.
So totally different culture of going out. A Bridgestone tyre, you'd go out, build up 3 to 5 laps and then
go.
Pirelli tyre, you've got to be out going straight away, and then
it goes in 3 laps.
It's two different approaches to it.
Mm-hmm.
So 1, trying to learn the tracks, 2, trying to learn the tyres, 3, learning and developing with the team.
I have heard that Rio's like really competitive in, say, Suzuki, the Suzuki Hour, and on the, say, Bridgestone tyres with full factory bikes. In terms of his personal goals, is with the move to BSB, obviously it's a massive change, like you've said, with the tyres and all of that type of stuff. Is he wanting to get to World Superbikes, and is that the sort of the goal to come here first? Because obviously it's a huge opportunity cost if he can, say, be winning in Japan or like being really competitive in World Endurance, to come to BSB where it's like super competitive. The tracks are, I would probably say, more dangerous and more difficult to ride, more technical. Why does it?
There's so many things, you know. You talk to Ryo and Takumi now, and they look back and they say, "My God, come to England. First of all, the tracks are so different. They're much tighter, narrower than any circuits we have in Japan.
Really,
the riders are so aggressive. All the riders, you know, so aggressive compared to how they are in Japan, and the tyres are so different. So, you know, not that they've just got to get used to it. Back when 2-3 years ago, when Ryo came over, I took him around, drove him around Cadwell Park, you know, in a car, and he couldn't believe it. He thought it was on a runoff road to the circuit or something. Where's the track? We were on it, you know. So it's just mind blowing, and it's a bit. I guess, Chrissy, if your aspirations are doing the roads or not, you know, take you around some of the road circuits and expect you to be on the money straight away is a big ask. So, you know, coming over to here, coming to the UK and, you know, getting your heads around the toughest circuits, Oulton Park, Cadwell Park, are very different to Silverstone. You know, Silverstone's and a big open track, they were much more fluid and used to and felt very different. But getting your heads around, Alton, Cadwell brands certainly
different.
took them.
In your opinion, what would be an acceptable learning curve? If you know what I mean, would you say give them 2-3 years to any rider, to learn a track? Or because there have been people in the past, some like Hopkins and what do you call him? Very famous lad, Josh Brooks. People
Josh
who come
Brooks,
over it.
Gregor Lavilla, there's loads of riders that are European or Australian. I mean, Australian circuits to UK again very different, but even coming from America to here, circuits very different. And the runoff, if you like, that we have around a lot of our tracks is a lot less than a lot of European circuits, but America, they've got a lot of
land, just a lot of
land, but they've got some what
Sketchy.
I wouldn't say sketchy because it's racing and everybody's you ride to your environment and we ride to the conditions. But when let's look at the track at Corby that's no longer there now, Rockingham.
Mm-hmm.
They tried to have BSB and everything there, but from the nature of the layout and the circuit and everything, obviously not conducive to run a BSB championship round there because of you're running against alongside a brick wall.
I think with Rockingham, the idea was to bring like IndyCar racing to the UK, and they spent something like 200 million on the layout of the circuit and all the grandstands and stuff. But I think they used the wrong type of tarmac, so like they couldn't actually get the cars over to race. So they then tried to turn it into like BSB, and Thundersport used to use it and didn't really use it very much. And then it's now a car park.
Yeah. It's a shame, really.
It's a massive shame when you look at the facilities and the grandstands, and it's massive infrastructure. But massive shame, especially when we could do with another good circuit in the UK, couldn't we?
There's loads of good circuits. It's really hard to sort of knock any circuit because you look at what MSV have done to all the circuits they take over. They certainly change them from the appearance of running, the condition and everything else.
Massively with Donington over the last few years.
But the bikes have changed massively as well. You look at, go back 10, 15 years, look at the horsepower difference, look at the tyre size difference, and we're still using the same track. It's something, discussed before. You remember using a 180 rear, 170 rear, 180 rear on 200s, 200s now.
Big contact patch.
Yeah, massive. And, makes the handling of the bike and everything very different to a 180 or 170 or whatever tyre. So
I did just want to ask earlier, a lot of riders that we've had on, ex-riders, have kind of they've been really passionate about motocross themselves, but then they've kind of looked ahead and thought of themselves, there's not really, like, in terms of career opportunities, there's not great career opportunities. So then they've came to tarmac, but really the heart are in motocross. But they've, for the careers, they've went, Neil Hodgson's a classic example, but there's lots of people similar. When you first initially started mechanicking in the tarmac world, did you think to yourself, I found my niche here and this is where I feel at home? Or was it more a case of like you loved the motocross but there was better career opportunities in the tarmac?
I need to pay the mortgage, so I'm going to stick a tarmac.
Was that
it's a tough one because at the end of the day I saw opportunity and I saw my future staying with Honda.
Yeah.
Yes.
So whether that be motocross or superbike, I wanted to progress and develop within Honda. So the years we finished in 2002 when we finished the Castrol Honda, 2003 I coordinated with the Arena Motorsport touring car and the Offshore Powerboat Championship.
Wow.
So that was with Matt Neal, Tom Chilton and Alan Morrison in the touring car.
Is that ran from here as well?
No, the teams were ran down Arena down south. But I went along to all the events and I was sort of Honda linked with Honda and the team. So that was the year coming back into the UK. So from 94 to 2002, everything I had been involved in was overseas, nothing in the UK. So 2004 saw an opportunity, me then back with Honda UK or back with Honda then in the UK, managing and working with the Red Bull rookie team, which was with Jonathan Ray, Stephen Neat and Eugene Laverty. the first year.
Oh, yeah.
God, Bennett.
I read about that in Jonathan's book.
Yeah.
We've actually got Jonathan coming on the podcast shortly as well.
Mhm.
But I remember.
Obviously, talk about his Honda days, not the Kawasaki.
No, God,
He's went on to have a fabulous career.
Yeah,
He's another one who said he was I'm not sure if these were his words, but it was an article like he was a failed motocrosser.
I think he's still more passionate about his motor.
He loves his motocross, you know, and he's a clever lad, you know. He can ride a bike, you know, and but it's like he said as well. I think years and years ago, you have a big crash in a motocross bike. In a way, it can, you know, you bloody hurt yourself badly. Not that you don't on a road bike, you know, on a short circuit, but I think, you know, he was more worried of tweaking his knees all the time and everything because
it's easy done, isn't it?
Massively.
With so all around sort of Honda racing for different aspects. When did you sort of settle into the British Superbike outfit?
So 2004, 5 and 6 Red Bull Rookies, 7 Honda Racing, 8 Bike Animal Honda, 9 and 10 HM Plant, 9, 10, 11, and then 12, 13 Samson Honda. Year off in 14.
Yes, sir.
And then back 15 to present day. So really from 15 onwards was really when, 2012, 13 when I managed the Samson Honda team with Alex Lowe's. I think then there's lots of change because Tuxworth was then looking to retire and I was looking to take over his position.
Yeah.
So that sort of transition, if you like, of 3 to 5 years, however long it was, I can't remember now.
At the point when Tux was still the team manager, what was your role in the team?
Neil was then managing one aspect of the team and I was managing another aspect of the team. Right. So, for example, if we had 2 teams or whether at the time then, remember in 14, 15, progressing in, the TT Legends came to birth. So Neil was then working on that and I was working on the BSP side of it.
World Endurance and the roads as well? Yeah, I remember that. Nice. In fact, I think do you have one of them in the front there? Yeah. Nice.
So the roads has been ran by HME, Honda Motor Europe, for the last 7-8 years, not by Honda UK.
Right.
So this year, from 2020, Honda UK have taken it back on, but unfortunately we've had no roads.
Yeah, typical.
Pandemic, so.
Also, have you never ran an outfit at the TT yet?
I have, but I was working with Honda Motor Europe and Honda UK back in 8 and 9. And for the last 11 years there with Mugen, I've been helping and working with Mugen on the TT0 project.
My goody hand. So when you stepped into the tarmac side of things and you just went, right, you're going to have to manage potentially one day the TT, how did that settle with you at that precise moment? Was it something that you just thought, is this just another job, or the realisation that how serious the TT is? I mean, the consequences of it.
The seriousness has always been there because I've been over there a number of times in the 30 odd years I've been with Honda.
Yeah.
First time going back in the early 90s, you know, having to take some parts over and meeting Joey in the hotel and didn't understand a word he said. And I was like, wow, you know, this is the Isle of Man. But actually working in it, working with it and working with the riders in it, it's, you know, you go there with your goals, your challenges and your approach to it. And as long as you still have everything in perspective, I'll always enjoy it. But there's always a dark, gloomy side to it all, and like there is in any racing. And you know, your planning, your preparation, everything else, you try and work to go there to do the best you can at that given time, because every year is different. All the conditions are different.
100%. So here's a question. You know, so like, what's Japan's like view on the TT? So you're saying it was like Honda Europe that were running it. So say it's like, would it be in Japan's interest putting a logo around the TT? You know, on a Honda?
Probably not this time. No, damn it. No. You know, from the years back in, you know, the 60s when Honda strived and turned up and, you know, if you like, going to the TT the first time for them to going back now is a very different,
Right.
very, very, very different situation, if you like. But it's really hard. The TT is, you either love it or hate it.
Yeah, it's such an insular event, and it's just
It is, you know.
the reason I was asking me a question prior is I'm very biased. I love it. I race it, but I think running a team, putting someone else on a bike, I think that would be a very different thing for me. You know what I mean? A very, very different thing. So the way you lads approach it, being team managers, is just absolutely mind blowing.
Do you have much support from, like, do the main sort of influential people from Japan, from Honda headquarters, do they have much involvement over here? Like, do they come and visit very often? Or
They've not been here for a number of years. I had a lot of the Honda bosses and HRC over 3-4 years ago.
right?
They were due to come over last year. 2021. But obviously due to COVID, not able to. But yes, with the Superbike Challenge program that's the team's involved in now, there's a lot of dialogue and communication with Japan.
Is that Superbike program? Is that an international thing for all the national championships?
It's basically, the idea of it, Chrissy, is for any Honda rider anywhere in the world to be, if you like, picked by Japan and placed.
All right.
So, you know, if there was a Honda rider in America or Australia or Asian championship coming through 600 into stock, into Superbike, and suddenly, right, we want to progress into world, because the target is to move to world and do Suzuka 8 Hour. But they want to develop them within the British Superbike Championship with a view of trying to win the Superbike Championship and then progressing on to the World Championship. Now, you know, unfortunately, for us starting that program in 2020 and it rolling out in 2021 in the worst climate ever for anything to happen like that has been horrendous, really. But you know, at the end of the day, we're all suffering. We've gone through a pandemic.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's hit us all, everybody differently. You know, and we have to put it all in perspective at the end of the day, because racing is about that important, isn't it, at the end of the day? When
For some people.
Yeah, it is. For some people. But you look at the amount of people that go, in the scheme of things,
Yeah, sure.
60-odd million people in the UK.
Definitely. Do you know, in terms of running the team over all those years you've just mentioned, and you're naming all the title sponsors from Animal Bike?
Bike Animal.
Bike Animal, Castrol, you've had HM Plant, Samson. And now it's just backed by Honda themselves, like without a title sponsor. In terms of for your job, you would, if you have a title sponsor, you're kind of accountable to them if you, in terms of results, and you have like different sponsors sort of want different things, and then from a manufacturer, obviously they want certain things. Do you prefer to have a title sponsor that you're looking after the guests, or do you prefer just getting direct support from the factory?
Tough question there, Chrissy. So let me just explain. So our team, we're owned, controlled and managed by Honda. There isn't another team in the championship. Same situation for us. So a title sponsor to us is being able to carry a good percentage of the running cost for them to be called a title sponsor. Because if they're not covering that cost, it's better off Honda brand it and run it as Honda, rather than giving all of that away for a
small amount,
small amount that you wouldn't class as a title sponsor. You know, I can go back, and unfortunately I'm not going to quote you any numbers, but I can go back to, you know, HM Plant days to previous and Samson Honda days, and the income then is very, very different to what it is now.
And is the main inflation from that, is it one particular, like, is it tyres, or is it something particular, or is it just general, like everything's just like rose at a similar sort of rate?
I've got my own personal views on some of it.
Right.
Personal. Sometimes I feel teams will sell off a title sponsorship package, if you like, for a very low fee. So this then generates a perceived value that a title sponsor is that.
Yes, well, that's the business element of it, isn't it?
Kind of other teams selling it too cheap kind of undervalues Because at
the end of the day, still to run a team or a rider in 600 Superstock or Superbike, it's still, that figure hasn't changed. It's got more expensive, albeit they've changed a lot of the rules to bring the prices down, but other areas have gone up. So, you know, for example, to run the Superstock rider and cover all the costs so that the rider doesn't have any finance, he's actually earning money, you know, is 100 plus for one rider.
Yeah,
easy.
With crewing it, bike, tyres, fuel, crash damage, testing.
I
the
think
best side.
I think the only person who's got a harder job than you is the Honda accountant. You know what I mean? I think that's the only harder working person. But it's got to be right though, and you must just look at this paper and go, "What are they buying now?"
Honda have been very, very supportive. Neil Fletcher, who's head of Honda UK Motorcycles, been very supportive to the program, coming in, taking over 4 years ago. So all the accounts, everything's all run by Honda. I have to report to Honda, I have to budget with Honda, and you know, again, it's in a very different situation because, you know, we have a calendar year, we have an accounting year, and we have a key with Honda. So I've got 3 nominees, and I've got to balance racing between all of that. So,
do you know, in terms of priority from the like bosses, your bosses from Honda, do you feel under pressure in terms of to provide results, or is it more of a case of promoting the bike in a positive way, or is it more of a PR thing, or what do you feel most? What do you think they want the most from you and your team?
Chrissy, you always want results, don't you? You always want to be at the sharp end. You always want to be within that chance of being at the sharp end. So that's never going to change.
Yeah.
The PR side of it is hugely important to Honda because at the end of the day, you know, from market leader and the manufacturers, and we're helping promote Honda motorcycles. So whether that be a Fireblade, a Naked, a Goldwing, an Adventure Sport, a Tourer, it's the brand.
Yeah.
So however we can help promote that and support the dealer network to do that, we will do so. And so working with Honda in conjunction with lots of projects and everything else, we achieve that. We achieve the fact of results side of it when we're at the sharp end, when you win in races, when you win in the championship. And then we're also setting the milestones, setting the parameters, setting the goalposts out, if you like, by developing and bringing on other riders and setting targets with it that you can have a 1, 2, 3 year plan. So there's lots of different aspects to it all. And I think, you know, as long as we have Honda in a position where they're able to do that, we can stay at the level that we are at present, if you like.
Yeah. By the way, do you know the YouTube clip thing, Building the Blade series? That's been really, really good. John Hogan, who does he run that whole thing?
No, John's brought in this year to sort of narrate it. Yeah. And the idea is just, you know, taking it to another level, looking at it from a different angle, showing the behind the scenes of what goes on, what it takes to achieve, to develop, to go racing, to show people that.
I must ask though, you know the new Fireblade that you've been running for a couple of seasons now. How long did you know that bike was there? You know, like on the quiet, you can say it now because it's out and releasing kicking ass, isn't it? But on the quiet, how long did you know?
We knew it was coming for quite a few years.
Right, years.
So,
you see, people don't see that because from like my own personal perspective, it's like when you're talking about the Samsung of like lows and you got McGuinness on the Honda that was the unstoppable force. That Fireblade was the bike, and it was very known as the reliable, like, and it was just tameable, and people won and got cracking results, and then it seemed to struggle, the Honda, when everything else developed around it, like the BMW with the Kawasaki's. It just seemed, and that was more prevalent in stock 1000 racing. You know, because you look at that class, and that's, for me, that's what sells bikes, is that stock 1000 class. And Honda seemed to change the odd thing. It was still a good bike, but it lost that edge.
It hadn't changed for, 8, 9, 10 years.
There we are.
And we're still... The last year, Andrew Irwin still won a race
Thruxton
on a superbike on a 10-year-old bike.
There we are.
You know, what are the manufacturers doing that at the time?
That's it.
But you know, the new Fireblade's an incredible machine, derived and based off the RC213 MotoGP replica bike. You know, again, you know, going back into 2020, Andrew Glenn took them over to Qatar, launched the bike. Then what happened?
John Hogan actually launched it.
John helped launch it as well, yeah.
But it was just such a dumb.
I've still got that bike here.
Have you?
Yeah, John launched the bike for us.
I've got a question.
Thanks, John.
Do you know? So obviously you had Andrew and Glenn back in 2020, and the year before, the year before that when you had, or it might be the year before that when you had O'Halloran and Linfoot. On Andy's debut in Superbikes, he actually skittled both of your riders into snetted into turn 2. At that point, did you think he's the man for me next year? Get him signed up. That's what we're after. A little bit of.
Yeah, how did that go about? Yeah.
It's funny how things in racing.
Painful weekend.
Do you know what? In terms of racing, because obviously when you're like at the time, no matter what happens, you're behind your rider. So whether he's right or wrong, you're like a fatherly figure, and like you're there for support. But then it's a weird old industry, because at the end of the season, everything can change, and you can go from like 1 minute, for example, there'll be years where Birdie will, you know, be against Brooks and he'll be his main rival, but then he signs him and he do you know what I mean? It's very similar to then, where at the time, you know, you're all behind Linfoot and O'Halloran, and you know that they're injured, and you know you'll be like hating Andy back then, but then the year after, he's your man, and no matter what happens, through thick and thin, you're in race control on his side. You know what I mean? It's weird how the whole thing works.
It is very, very weird. You know, the main thing for me back then was Jason had come back from a World Superbike event, and he had an injury, and unfortunately, at that situation at Snetterton, aggravated it even more. You know, and that was a bad thing for me, because Jason had spent a lot of time on trying to rehabilitate and recover, you know, to get back, to be able to ride, and then being, however you look at it, being anybody who's taken out, you know, you're always you're mortified for that person, aren't you?
Yes,
you know? It doesn't matter who it is, all right? But more so for Jason, for me, because he's injured. That's the bit that sort of got me a bit. I thought, bloody hell, you know. After all of that, getting to where we are, I thought, right, if we can get a few safe rounds, we can progress, and then, you know, the rest is history, really. But you know, you'd say then to Andrew, he was never going to make that corner at the trajectory angle that he came in at. So.
Very well put.
Yeah, mind you, like I said, the year after, he had some tremendous times. That the first round, we had Hickman on. That hasn't actually been released yet, but it's going out this week. He was saying how that year, beginning of 2020, the new tyres like really screwed his team over, and he went from being in the showdown the year before to being like, he finished 14th in the championship that year, where it seemed to be like a massive blessing in disguise for Honda, for yourselves, because from round 1, you know, brand new bike without any settings, and you were the men to beat that weekend, weren't you?
Oh, that was, I tell you, I must get your point of view on the two Irwins, both on Hondas, like trading paint. That was the black bikes. There wasn't much paint to spot that year, wasn't it? So it was
yeah, that was a bit of heart in your mouth time, to be fair. Down to Ukraine, you know, old hairpin and God knows what else. But it was.
That's what you want, though, battling for first place, don't
exactly. You know, like I said to you earlier, Chrissy, you know, what we want to do, we want the guys to be at the sharp end, and for racing to be racing. We don't encourage anybody else to make harsh moves or dirty moves or anything else, and things happen. Red mist, riders get it, and you know, they've got to deal with the consequences afterwards. But
it was almost better than the fact that they were brothers. It was like
they were brothers, you know, and the fact that they weren't ever going to take each other out. They were going to take it as close and close, probably, than you and I would prefer to have been. But, you know, for the first year for the Blade, new Fireblade was incredible. But we were on the back foot then because of the lack of testing and lack of everything. But that's the same for everybody. But was going back to earlier, when the new Fireblade came out, we went suddenly into lockdown. So, even going into 2021, starting off, we'd planned to do a PR event with Honda in Spain. That got postponed, and we ended up having to utilise and run it at Alton Park. But again, we should have done that 4 months earlier. So we've felt continuously that the Fireblade hasn't had the PR and the backing and support that we would have wanted to have done or given it, being a brand new bike. Because it's still a bike to me that a lot of people don't know a lot about. Don't know a lot about it.
Do you know, going into that 2020 season, you also signed Davey Todd in Superstock.
Yes.
And obviously Davey's an up-and-coming man on the roads. And at the time, you've kept Tom and the team from the year before and brought Davey in. And they actually started road racing at the same year in Thundersport, the 600s, and they'd had similar sort of racing experience.
Yeah.
Did you expect, at the beginning of the season, did you expect the season to pan out how it did, where Tom was battling for wins and Davey was a little bit off? Or did you expect them both to be this? Did Tom exceed your expectations, or did it sort of pan out how you expected?
It didn't pan out how I expected, no. We had probably some dynamics within the team that didn't help, if I'm honest, with it. Davey, talented lad for sure. He would much rather be known for a rider doing British superbikes than just a roads rider.
Yeah.
And for sure, he's got that talent there. But, 2020 sure saw the short season cutbacks. 2020, no roads, no Northwest. Yeah. 2021, no roads, no Northwest. So at the end of 2020, after 6 rounds, said, look, if the TT runs, we'll do it this way. If not, we'll do it this way. But I see a lot in Davey, and he's definitely got a potential. It just needs a package around him to give him that full year again in Superstock and progress and develop, because just to hang back and wait for the roads,
it's difficult.
That's 2 seasons gone. And he 2 seasons of doing nothing.
He seems to have settled in really well with the Padgett's team. Came back, he was riding as good as he's ever really ridden at the end of the season there. So Clive runs a strong setup there. Do you work with Clive in terms of developing the bike? Like, do you see yourself as more as not sort of teammates, but like working together rather than working rivals?
For sure, working together. I'd love to see Davey riding for Padgett's next year on the roads and on the short circuit. And we help Clive as much as we can in all aspects.
Because on your website, it's like you've got Linfoot's team as well. Is it? Who's the Tag Racing, Tag Honda? So it's on the Honda Racing website. You've got your official riders, as well as Padgett's and the tag team, which is good to see, actually, because it's
getting other teams out there to run Honda, which is what my target and objective was in 2020-21 with the Superstock, with a view now of us stepping back out of the championship, but allowing other riders to opt into the support package which I put forward for 2022 of running your own Honda. I put up a prize fund. We put up a prize fund.
It's 10 grand, isn't it? For
£10,000 for a race for the championship win, plus a brand new RR road bike.
What's the retail price of the? Is that
25
It's like a 35 grand bonus.
Plus, I will obviously then pay for every set of tyres for the races they win races with. So, not only...
Everyone's going to be on a Honda next year after this.
It's a hell of a package,
If you get tyres from Pirelli and you get tyre support from me, all that equivalent to, you'll get MSV prize money, you'll get all, that tied in as well. So there's a big package, but you've got to win the races to do that, and you've got to win the championship to get that.
And also, you've said you'll supply sort of data and help, technical help as well with that.
We'll supply all our race data and everything with Tom from the last 2 years. So our sort of data sheets, setting sheets, and suspension sheets and everything else. Obviously, a lot of that is only going to be relative if you're using the same components as us. We ran with Olin's. So, but to assist with gearing,
Are you going to have people on the ground, like going round the paddock, or no? It's simply they have to come to
It's their team. It's their team.
Yes.
And all we'll do is supply them information.
Yes.
For them to start off the weekend potentially in a direction where we were or where we finished.
Yeah, somewhere close.
Somewhere close. Because we found that this year, still quite a few guys that are running Hondas are still coming to us probably on a Saturday, unsure of the gearing. You know, if we can give them the gearing and the gear plan of what we had,
Hit the ground
they've got
running.
something to start off with straight away.
Question for you. So when you had Linfoot and O'Halloran both riding for you, they were very similar in terms of like they would both be either battling for the podium or both be battling for 10th. It seemed to be like when the bike was working, but every track there was maybe a couple of tenths between them, very, very close. From them both leaving your team at the end of 2019, I believe, the both of the careers have completely went opposite end of the scale, I would say, in terms of the results. Why do you think that is?
You need to ask them that, really.
No, well dodged.
You know, it's
Next question.
Are you a politician?
no. Listen, you know, Jason was with us for a long time. He rode with Honda for 10 years, and
Same again with the super stock
yeah,
thing.
exactly. Coming through super sport, super stock, superbike, and dare I say, you know, Jason knew then that we had a new bike coming in and everything else, and it didn't arrive the year that we thought it was going to arrive, and things change, you know, and you know, you can't knock it for him. Jason's had an incredible year this year, you know, and fair play to him. He's been, you know, great to watch, and I think he's opened a lot of people's eyes and everything of what he's capable of being able to do.
Definitely.
You know, the lad's had a lot of injuries and been around, unfortunately, for him when he's had those injuries, and he's had a tough ride, you know. There's lots of things that have gone on that probably people don't sort of remember or realise now. And going back to Toseland's days, you know, what plays in the head and how you deal with things. You know, I'm sure that Jason's had a few gremlins in his head a couple of times thinking, Christ, what the hell am I doing?
Yeah.
Of this whole interview, we've hardly covered anything to do with Glenn, and obviously Glenn's been a massive part of you, especially your success recently. This year he's going to be doing the British Superbike Championship. He's your sort of number one rider, really. Well, although you might not call it number one, but he's the
Most
sort of
experienced.
he is the most experienced rider in the British Superbike assault for Honda, as well as looking to do the international roads with the Northwest 200, where he's won the last. He's on a roll, isn't he? Like a big roll, and also debuting at the TT. Good move for you in terms of team boss. Are you? Well, it's never seemed to slow Hickman down doing no extra, is it? So
No, you know, I'm looking forward to it. But you've got three very different dynamics here: BSB, Northwest, which Glenn's won 4 or 5 times,
God, Benedict, yeah.
and the roads. So he's a newbie in the roads. He's a race winner of the Northwest, and he's still striving to reach his goal in British Superbike, becoming Superbike champion. So he's got a very diverse package there. And as long as Glenn keeps with the mentality of dealing with each one in its own little bubble, I'm happy.
yeah,
If we suddenly get carried away with things, then I won't be.
yeah,
Because, you know, the roads is going to be a challenge for him. He is doing his homework. He is researching, studying, over there doing laps, back over there again now. And it's going to be a massive wow factor to him. And to have a teammate as John McGuinness with him, no better person to have on board with him, you know, coming into from that point of view. But do you see what I mean, Chrissy, with, you know, BSB, he knows what he's got to do. Roads, Northwest, he knows and what he can do. The Isle of Man, that's an unknown. It's a whole new game. A whole new game. A different approach to it. And much, you know.
So when you got the opportunity to get John back on board, was that a bit of a godsend for the Glenn situation, in your opinion?
he's the perfect mentor, really.
He really is, isn't he?
Glenn, yeah, it's difficult. It's without going too much in the past, you know, with what happened with John and how his career's gone in the last 3 to 5 years. I very much wanted him to come back onto Honda. I wanted him to work with us. I wanted him to be our ambassador with us for Honda.
Yeah.
So achieving that, I'm pleased to have John back on board. I'm really pleased that he wants to have his 100th TT start on board a Honda.
Yeah.
And where it all goes from there, of how John works with the team, works with us going forward, it's open. There's no parameter set. It's open. It's down to John what he wants to try and do and what he wants to do forward. If he wants to stop racing next year and work with me on the roads program, fine. If he wants to carry on in another area, fine. If he wants to work with us in the ambassador side of it, John's history. You look at all of his history and his career. Majority of his wins and everything have been on board on a Honda.
Mm-hmm.
It seems. For John to see the rest of his career out working with us, to me, is the right way.
Is John also riding the 600 for you?
I'm not sure yet. We're just working on, obviously, the Honda have a CBR 600, our race kit ready bike, which is available in the Asian market.
Locker's been running one, hasn't he?
Yeah,
with Adam
he's had the
McLean.
road bike.
Right, not the race version.
No, he's had the road bike converting it. So there lies a few challenges because of the kit ECU and everything. A bit like if you take your road bike now and go and run that on the short circuit, you can't change the gear and there's so much you can't do.
Mm-hmm.
So it needs to have the race kit ECU and everything, and you need to have the software to be able to get in it to change the parameters. But that's an ongoing project, and we'll see, because at the moment Japan don't want to bring that bike into Europe or into America.
Right.
It's only for the Asian market.
Why is that?
It's not doesn't meet the Euro emissions, for one.
Right.
And I'm sure in the pipeline, you never know, there might be another bike in the future.
I was about to, is this a bit of a wink, wink, nudge, nudge moment? Is it? Like,
No, I'm just saying
I'm all about it, to be fair. I mean, if you want to just
No, but
exclusive.
if there's something there in the coming years, it's just the last 2 years have been tough for all the manufacturers, and if wouldn't be an ideal time to bring a brand new bike out, would it?
I was about to say, because the rules changes in like worlds, as well as like TT haven't released any regs whatsoever yet on that side of things, because they're talking about 765s, Ducatis and everything. So the fact of Honda chucked in the old pot of doom, shall we say, just chucked in another 600, it might be uncompetitive. That's the truth of it. So
well, we need to see. We'll see how the what the bike looks like and whether we can get it over here in the trim that we need it in.
Mm-hmm.
If we can achieve that, then we'll try and do something. If not, John will be running on the super stock and the superbike for us at the Northwest TT, and he'll do the first couple of rounds in the Superstock Championship.
Oh, he's coming back to stock 1000 as well. Oh, that'll be great to see that.
Have you? Is your deliveries nearly here? Are you all right?
But on a total personal note, I think, as far as my opinion on Honda, getting John back on a Honda says a lot. You know what I mean? I think that is a great move by yourself and the whole Honda team.
Perfect PR, no?
It really is, in my opinion, because it's like, there was that difficult. We're not going to go discussing it in detail, but there was those difficult couple of years, like with the results from the Honda. But now getting them back, it's putting the faith back in the reliable Honda.
It is, it's a tough one.
That's my point of view. By the way.
Listen, it's a tough one, and what can you say? Things happened, and life goes on.
Well, that's it.
Back last year at Bennett's track day, I went up there with a friend of mine who was on his bike, and I took a bike up there. I was going to do a bit of a ride around Cadwell Park, as you do. But John was there, and I let John have a ride on it. And anyway, he stayed on it the whole day. So
you didn't want to knack his old tyres, that's why.
That's true, yeah. I was paying for the fuel. No, but do you know what I mean? It was something I said, look, John, have a go on it, try it, and
it's worked.
And it just went straight off from there.
And also, going back to the Glenn thing, lots of sort of PR and interviews and stuff over the last year about mental health, and like sort of Glenn's been very open about struggles. Very much credited you as somebody that's massively helped him through some of the hardest times of his life, sort of behind the scenes. And we're just discussing before the podcast about you. Obviously, that comes from experience from yourself in terms of you've had some huge battles in the past. I was totally unaware of what you've been through as well.
I do apologise for sticking my foot well and truly in it on that one.
Are you okay to talk about it on the podcast? Because I don't think, well, some people might know, but so back in sort of 2014.
So 2013, Samson Honda Days. We had a party up here for Alex Lowe's celebrating. That afternoon, I was actually in local hospital, had a camera down my throat. I'd suffering with struggling to swallow and a sore throat and a tickly cough, and 3 to 4 months had gone by. And anyway, so that day they went into there, put a camera down my throat. And as soon as the camera went down, and then they called a load more people in the room, I thought, oh, this is not looking good. 2 and a bit hours later, out and taking a load of biopsies, and they're saying, look, you've got a tumour in your esophagus, top of your esophagus and into your stomach, and we've got to do a biopsy on it.
Jesus, what a day to get that news.
Yeah, so that wasn't ideal. So I'd given the choice to have some numbing anaesthetic and everything else. It said, you're not going to be able to eat and drink or anything for the 12 hours. I said, well, I've got a party tonight, so
we'll delay it.
Option B, please.
Yeah, option B. So nothing. So I remember going there, having a bit of a sore throat, and then having a meeting the following day with Stuart Higgs, because then it was announced then that Samson weren't going to be continuing. So, and then the following day I was down at Honda UK, and then the doctor said, look, we'll call you back within 24 hours. So I get a call back literally the following day down at Honda UK, and said, however, you need to get back up wherever you are. You need to get back to Lincolnshire Hospital. You need to go and see oncology. I'm sorry, you got cancer. So it all kicked in from there, from December, I think it was, very, very early December, 2013.
Holy crap.
And had all of the like chemo and all of
So I had 6 months of chemo and quite a few operations. But at first, when it was diagnosed in my esophagus and my gullet, they felt the tumour was too big. It said stage 3, stage 4. So then I went for a second opinion, but they had to do surgery to verify it. And they said it spread to a few of my lymph nodes in my neck, so they took all those out. And they said, well, look, we can cure it, but we're going to have to remove a portion of your gullet, your esophagus, and reshape your stomach.
Wow.
So started on with 3 months of chemo, and then went into surgery. Had first operation was about 11 hours, and then another one after that, about 6 hours.
And what was it? You said you had a year off, which is more than understandable. Was that your year off period?
Well, 2014 was having the surgery and the chemo and recovering, and then I came back in October, November, December part-time.
Fair play.
With a view of starting back in the following year. But, those 18 months were horrendous for me in a sense of trying to eat, drink and do things, because it's you go back to having baby food basically, because you can't digest anything, and it's like now I don't eat red meat, and there's a lot of dairy I don't eat, and pasta and bread and all sorts, anything with additives and preservatives in I keep away from. And then
because what a year. I can't believe you've literally gone from like your career, like a career high of like we are champions, and then the follow that is wow, that's phenomenal.
Do you think the sort of lived experience that you had then sort of helped you help Glenn in the difficult times, like sort of help mentally?
I think it helped in a way to be able to explain it, and one, talk, and two, most importantly, listen. Because everybody's got gremlins, however they are, and it's been able to deal with them and help him deal with them, help him see what's in front of him, and try and help him make the right choice with it.
Mhm.
And, not going into too much, but Glenn's had a tough time, going back from horrific car crash and the injury he had and losing people, friends with him, and also the injury that sustained to him and the effect that has. Glenn and Andrew are two very close brothers and can be very close, but also quite distant. But what anybody's going through, the other person doesn't necessarily see. And so, to be able to help Glenn and, as long as I can help him and as long as at the end of the day, he's got to want to do it and he's got to make the changes and he's got to put it into motion, hasn't he?
He's definitely doing that.
But
100%.
Yeah.
Having the racing to focus on, but especially like you said, he's got a fair few plates spinning this year. Now, you're looking quite hench these days, so I'm expecting quite a good score here. I've seen you do you train it like together? I've seen videos and that of like it's actually on that building the blades thing when John came to the gym and like the whole team do training sessions together, don't they? So
was that one off just for the camera? Let's everyone in there. Get
I know
your
we've
gym
never
gear
done
in.
this before, but 6 o'clock.
I want everyone pushing hard.
So we've started. I'll show you in a second.
The training side of it is something for me to get into because of the eating. Because if I don't train, don't exercise, basically, food intake is minimal.
Right.
Because I can't digest it.
Mm-hmm.
So if I don't train, don't exercise, and I train most mornings, if not every other morning, from spinning or cross trainer or HIIT or calisthenics or whatever, and that's hence why I got quite a few of the team mechanics involved in it, and also riders from Takumi, Rio, Glenn, when we were over, and Tom. Train quite a bit with Tom. I have every other week or every week we'll have a HIIT session together.
It's good. Is Takumi and Rio got you into any of the Japanese cuisine?
They have, yeah. But I like Japanese food anyway.
Oh, well, there we go. That's a cheap cop out on that one.
So we've just started this game, so it's the scales here. You basically just grip it and squeeze it as hard as you can. So on our leaderboard so far, we've got Brad Howell and Peter Hickman are both joined top 13.5. Brad Clark's 12. Steve Rogers, we had Steve Rogers on, was it last week or the week before? 11.2. Bjorn Esterman 11. Jack Bernacle 7. Zoe Byrne 4.4. So where do you think you're going to...
No idea.
We're going for a podium. We're going for a podium. So basically, you just hold this like this and then just squeeze as hard as you can like that, right? So you hold it out in front of you.
In front of... Facing me? Or
facing this way.
Yeah.
In fact, I'll move this
out of the way for now.
And then straight arms up and... So it's best if you go in the middle.
In the middle, is it?
Yeah,
that's
like
so
that.
on.
Get your grip. Have a practice go. So decent. Right, and then just relax a second.
Get your arms nice and straight.
Ready?
Straight. Oh, that's the one, my man. That's
straight
the one.
arms, and just as hard as you possibly can, right?
Think of the Snetterton crash.
Yeah, you've got to beat... So Steve Rogers is 11.2. Go for that, right? You ready?
Go for it. Go on.
Ooh, we've got 10.9, I'm afraid. So where you're slotting in fifth place, I think, there.
It'll be
good effort.
I think it's... Yeah.
Look, this is the engineer kicking out in here. There.
Go on, have a go there. Bloody hell.
Because I can't get my hands onto the back of it. But if I can hold it
I'm glad I wasn't filming that. I think we've just found the ultimate hack there.
If you hold it that way...
You got like 14.5 doing it.
Look at him looking at the leaderboard. So there you are. Brad, you've been stuffed.
So, unofficial top, but spot on. Right, few quick fire. Are you still push for time? Or?
No, we're all good for that. There's nobody else.
Oh, yes. Quick fire questions. Yeah. You've had absolutely loads of the top names in BSB riding for your team over the years. Who's, on a personal note, like say if you wanted to, go out for a nice meal with your family or whatever, and bring one of them along who's so nothing racing really related, but just who would you really like to catch up with?
I'd love to catch up with Kianari.
Yeah,
I haven't seen him for a long time, and he's got a lovely family. He sent me a lovely Christmas card again this year, and he always sends one every year with his family and his children on there growing up and everything. And I had a lot of time for Kio. He lived with me for 3 years when he was over here racing in 2006 and 2007.
Wow.
So, it'd be nice to see him again.
Because what I was about to say, when was Keogh's last year? And he what's happened to him? What's he on with? What's in the postcard?
He's riding for Honda in Japan.
Oh, right.
Yeah. That's
how's he getting on? He's just winning everything.
No, he's won races, but he's again with the bike and everything else. He's sort of found some challenges, if you like, and
right.
I think what can I put it? He's having a tough time, but he's still enjoying it.
Good.
Right.
He was a sensation when he came over here.
Oh, how many championships did he win? 4 or 3?
Well,
was it 3?
Yeah.
3 for you lot. So he's an enigma of it. I keep referring back to
very, very unassuming person.
Mm-hmm.
Seemed to be.
Yeah, very unassuming, very low profile. He'd rather tell you how he did it rather than tell you what he's going to do.
I like that. I like that. No, I do like that. Because he just it doesn't matter where he was on the grid, no nothing. No one ever ruled him out. You know how a lot of riders can, well, no. Keogh could just be at the back of the grid and go, you know what, I fancy this. It just seemed like...
kept it all to himself. He wouldn't show his cards. He wouldn't he was very sort of a base sort of flatliner, but he didn't show his emotions this way or this way. Do you know what I mean? It's very...
Was that easy to work with or difficult to work with?
No, easy to work with.
Right, you prefer that in a rider.
Yeah.
Right.
That's some ways I wish I could be a little bit more like that. I mean, my dad's told us, so it would have been like a great uncle or someone I had never met, but he said he had a lovely quality where no matter if he'd had the best day at work or the worst day at work,
you'd never know.
When he got back home and sat down, you would never know. He's just always the same.
I would call that no crack myself.
No, he's always just nice and like sort of could park things to one side. Like I wish I could be a little bit more.
You don't
like
let the emotions get to you, whether it's ecstatic or doom and gloom.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's been able to deal with that and just concentrate on what your goal, what you want to achieve from it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, Keogh was
Who's the opposite end of that spectrum you worked with?
The most emotional.
The one who's like up and down by borderline bipolar, really. But
there's been a few.
To be fair, we actually need a list of names so we can go ask them that question. If that would be ideal from our end.
Who's the best? Who's like the?
Who's the happiest lad you've had on? Like one that you've had to go, look, son, stop eating blue Smarties and just calm down a bit.
Alex Lowe's. I used to joke with him saying that I needed paracetamol before I sat down and went in the room with him because he was just bouncing off the walls.
Really? He was young when he rode for you, mate, wasn't he?
No, he didn't. That's a perception that you get off the telly, though, isn't it? Because you just seem quite a happy lad. Don't get me wrong, but he didn't seem like that, mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you also had Leon Haslam when he was very young as well, when he first came back from GPs. I was actually out with Leon not long ago and he was telling us that, well, I'd already read the story in, I think it was Rutter's autobiography, but then he retold it in his version of events. But Honda had a big sort of a bike launch. I think they closed down like Manchester city centre and I think it was Rutter and Emmett or something with the superbike riders, and they wanted a wheelie picture going down like the middle. Were you there for this? No, they wanted a wheelie picture on the superbike, and neither of the superbike riders wanted to do it. So Leon was like 19. He was like, "Oh, go on, I'll do it." And he flipped. So down they closed off the city centre, and he flipped the bike. Well, he got it to the balance point, went for the back brake, and there was no back brake. And so he flipped it. Do
you still believe that?
And the bike wheeled over a bus stop and like absolutely wrote off the bike before the season. Just like on a PR thing. Also, you've done, I think it was Rutter again did, there was a thing with Jensen Button, like who could do the fastest bike, Formula 1 kind of speed.
I was involved with that one.
Yeah, what tells about that?
He worked on all three.
We had Steve Curtis, Jensen Button and Michael Rutter. So powerboat, F1, blade on the superbike. City Airport on the runway. And the idea was from a standing start to a point who'd be the quickest. Michael was quickest by far until Jensen F1 team got the launch control sorted out in the F1 car.
I remember
And
that.
that was just gone then.
Really?
Yeah.
I felt sorry for
That was great doing that then.
I felt sorry for the boat lad. He must have just pulled up and just gone, oh,
Yeah,
what
but
am I
Steve
doing here?
Curtis in that thing, I mean, bloody hell, that's rapid. If you've, doing 40, 50, 60, 70 mile an hour in water,
You know
are
about it.
motoring,
Oh, giddy. Yeah. Okay. If you could have any circuit in the world on the BSB calendar, what circuit would you want? Ooh, there we are.
Be nice to have Phillip Island in.
Oh, yeah, definitely for this time of year, it'd be outstanding, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I've never been over there, but it does look
Phillip
like,
Island, yes.
like a circuit.
Unbelievable circuit.
Of all of the Honda liveries that you've had over the years, what was your favourite?
Ooh. I can answer that one. For me, anyway.
I'll answer it after as well.
I think for me that really stood out and quite special was the Colin Edwards Laguna Seca livery and the Castrol Honda.
You were going to say Castle.
No, was it the same race as Imola, 2000, when him and Bayliss for the final race?
That was the same race. Well, it's that
Same.
year, but obviously we launched it in Laguna, and then went on from then.
Oh, that was absolutely like the team I raced for, Kawasaki. No, the Super Twin that Fran and Neil have built is based upon that Castrol R look. I think it's beautiful. Absolutely, I'm not going to get sued for that. Am I? You know what I mean? There they are. So I was
going to say, and I think it's just from a personal thing, because when I first got into bike racing and watching BSB for the first time, H&M Plant Honda with when you first brought out the underseat exhaust, that to me was like revolutionary at the time. I remember going to the meetings and like looking around the car park to find one like in the flesh. Really, really cool. And obviously also with the links to McGuinness breaking the 130 mile an hour on the same sort of livery. I think that'll always stand out for me. You've got
quite an iconic livery and package then, if you like. The H&M Plant days, brilliant, unbelievable days with John Jones. And the livery itself stood out because the bike was black because of Honda. H&M Plant logo was the
massive orange,
the lozenge, and that was that on our black bike. So it just, the contrast of the two, quite iconic, stood out really well on TV, stood out great on camera as well.
Of all of the, if you could go back and like relive one season, any season of your career, which one would you do and why?
There's a number of seasons you'd love to go back and probably slow it down a little bit. But the years you've won championships or you've been close to, they always stick out in your mind. The riders that you've worked with that have probably worked a lot harder than other riders in the past will always stick in your mind. For me to pick something out of 30 odd years is quite a tough one, but I've got to say the last I'll come back to that in a minute.
Right, have you got any quick fires? I got some Patreon ones as well.
I don't know, I'm struggling now. You've got me on the spot here. You've got me on the spot. You've caught us out of. They are straight off the bat.
Yeah. We're on a Patreon page, which is kind of like a social media page for like our sort of super fans for the podcast, and we'll always give them a chance to ask questions as well. So right. I think I'll have a quick check to see what's on that one. We've got 4 questions.
Have Honda ever done Macau? They have, haven't they?
They have, but we've never done it. As in, I've never done it with Honda UK. Neil went over there back in 7, 8, 9 years ago.
Right.
With Rutter and with McGuinness and McGuinness. I'm trying to think what year was that. Was that 10, 11? God, was that long ago? Wow.
That is scary, isn't it?
Yeah. No, I've never been.
So easy. Would you, from Honda's point of view, is it always not many teams run a 2-rider team on the roads anymore? Is that a case? Is it literally just down to the money? So is it a better situation for yourself to have 2 riders?
I think for us going into 2022 with the celebrations and what we have, we've got newcomer, John McGuinness 100th TT start, anniversary of the Fireblade. We've got a lot going on.
Yeah.
A lot going on. Now, if we can be successful within that in itself, when we spoke earlier about whether it's PR, results, and we're ticking all the right boxes and developing and showcasing the Fireblade, which is what we want to do. So, for Glenn, certainly his newbie year there will be an eye-opener to him. And John's 100th TT start.
It's cool. I think, to be fair, I think the road's probably, I don't know this for a fact, but I'd imagine the road's is probably better for sales as well in terms of the bikes. Like, I think for people who are, if you were in the market to buy a road bike, I think you tend to look at the TT and Northwest to judge it more than, say, super bikes. I personally think if I was a customer looking for a bike, I think it's more significant to the sales market. I would have thought. But were you just asking there about, have you been to Japan? Was that the question?
Sorry, he said Macau.
Oh, Macau. Sorry, yeah.
Kind of near. It's not that far on. Anyway.
In Rutter's book, he mentions as well that when he went over to the HRC, like headquarters or whatever, they have like set periods of the day where they like stop and everyone in the factory meditates and stuff. Have you ever been over for anything like that?
I spent a lot of time in Japan, a lot of time at the factory back in the early 90s.
I was going to say, do you have that in there if you come in at a certain time where you're all there meditating?
No, that's a religious reason. So, right. they're very, very strict in Japan. If your time coming in, stopping for lunch, stopping for break, resting, finishing work, closing your laptop, very, very strict in that sense.
What's the main religion in Japan?
Whether you're from Buddha or from Christian or from, it's very mixed.
Right.
But,
it's one country I'd love to go.
It's unbelievable country.
Yeah.
From if you're over there, and again, the culture shock is huge, huge, from eating out to sleeping to traveling.
It'd be like Rio's in reverse, isn't it? Like going.
I'd love to drop a few people off in Japan and say,
just see what happens.
There you
go. Yeah.
Good luck, son.
Yeah.
So Jesse Mortimer, he's got two questions. One is, do you speak any Japanese? And the second one is, obviously you're not running. So after winning the Superstock Championship with Tom last year, you're not running Superstock directly from here. Are you just doing the supported? Is that right?
So first of all, Japanese, we speak a little. I mean, very, very little. And it's,
what's the rudest word you know?
That was actually the question.
I bet it was.
Not for that, probably. Yeah. No, at the end of the day, you're trying to communicate, aren't you? So being able to understand words. I bought a couple of translators, digital ones,
all right,
to help express some words, because their meanings or understanding from Japanese to English gets lost in translation.
Yeah.
Especially when you're talking about racing. It's all very well if you say what's milk in Japanese or what's water in Japanese, but when you try to explain or talk about what they're doing on a bike and what they're trying to achieve, it's a difficult one.
Like, for example, there might not be a direct translation for like chatter, for example.
Yes, exactly.
Or it might translate to actually like speaking, and it'll be like the bike's speaking.
Yeah. I suppose. And then back to Superstock. Yeah, we're not running an official team in Superstock, but we are aiming to support a number of riders that are on board on a Honda for 2022.
Excellent.
Are Honda doing like a support package directly? So like, let's throw some other swear words in there, like BMW, you can get a little bit of a support package for buying a bike. Same with the Kawasaki's. Do Honda do that? Or do you have to buy a base bike flat out at 22 grand and go from there?
No, we have. It depends on the calibre of the rider and what championship they're in.
Right.
For Superbike, for sure, we put a bit of a support package together. But for Superstock, we've had a conditioned price, which we'll try and push through dealers.
Right.
For the dealers to support them.
Yeah.
But as you well know, there's very few dealers that are really 100% race orientated. At the end of the day, they're selling bikes for the road, not concentrating on the road. on racing. So as much over the years, pushing things through Padgetts and Dobles and Hunts and Ecos and all over the country. It's
So like our listeners, like a heavy majority of them are active like race or own race teams. So who would you see? You can't really answer that question. If you're going to direct to a particular dealer, that's very biased on your side of things.
Geographically, wherever they are, we'd try and push them through a local dealer to where they live.
Yeah.
If then there wasn't a suitable dealer or wasn't a dealer closer to them, when we'd suggest an alternative.
Right.
With a view of, the thing is for me is that the dealer needs to be very proactive with it, because if they're not able to communicate and share and help with it for racing, they're a one-stop pony. Go in there, go and buy the bike, go and buy the parts, and off they go. So we do try to get dealers to be involved, but we understand that they are there to sell motorcycles for the roads and not for racing.
Yeah, fair enough.
Very good question. One of our patrons, Michael Glisson, asked about so for a good chunk of time in MotoGP, the Repsol Honda team were very much the dominant force in MotoGP. He sort of likened it to Ferrari were a little bit in Formula One for a period of time. And especially the time where they had like Stoner, Pedrosa and Dovi, like a 3-man team. All three were sort of winning races, regular podiums. Over recent years, the team seems to have focused very much around, or the bike seems to have focused very much around Marquez. Or you could look at it as if Marquez is the one that can make it work. Either way, the rest of the Honda riders have struggled to be consistent race winners or podium finishes in MotoGP. Do you feel like that's the other manufacturers have just invested more, like the likes of Ducati and Yamaha, or do you have much to do with the MotoGP, sir?
Well, I don't, but we obviously get to see and hear lots of what's going on, and you can. Marquez is an unbelievably talented rider. And if Marquez is leading the direction of development and they're going in this way, and you've got other riders unless they ride like him, it's not going to work.
Do you feel like that's what's happened?
I feel, looking from the outside and looking from within. But, Marquez had a tough time of late.
I think there's definitely a lot more going on with him than people are letting it, which is understandable. It's his life, isn't it? But I just, because that injury's taken a long time, God love him, innit? It is. It seems to be anyway.
I think there's been
bit, when we said earlier, as you get older, you don't bounce as well, do you?
Yeah.
And
do you know, just
recovery rate longer.
So just before he actually had that big incident, we were down at the North Yorkshire Road Racing Sports Club with Martin Rains, who does all the stats for MotoGP for the TV guys, like get all of the stats ready for them to use. And he was given all of the stats for Marquez crash rates and like comparing them like for like with all of the other past great riders, and he was more or less saying it's impossible or it's like incredibly unlikely that he can keep crashing without serious injury. And that's obviously what's sort of panned out. The race that he actually seriously injured himself was one of the most spectacular performances up into the crash. He was leading, went right back to he had that incident where he ran off and then almost got back up to the podium, but they're the best riders in the world, and he was making everyone look quite average in comparison, but obviously really, really spanned himself, did a remarkable job to get fixed from that. I really don't know the latest with his injury, but he is a proper one-off. He's a phenomenal talent, isn't he?
Just look back, to the amount of saves and near crashes. It's phenomenal. How many times has he saved that bike, lost the front, lost
everything,
picked it back up, and the average or the norm would have been down the road. His injury, I'm sure he's had complications, so we know that. You wish anybody like that, but you'd hate to see somebody finish their career because of that.
Definitely.
And as we said earlier, as you do get older, your recovery rate, your repair rate, your bone muscle recovery rate and repair is is diminished from an 18 to 22-year-old person, a younger person. But it'd be great to see him back up there again with current potentials that are in MotoGP now, because it's the last 18 months, it's just turned upside down, gone all over the place. You if you had a crystal ball, you'd have struggled to go, right, he's going to go there, he's going to do... What are you talking about?
Yeah. Speaking of which, I mean, Honda's probably done the most radical change in World Superbikes, taking 2 riders from the Moto2 paddock. How, in your opinion, is that a good direction change? I mean, it's a complete U-turn in terms of like from where they have been with Bautista and Haslam. Good change for you? Do you think a bit of fresh blood into the Honda family?
With all of the plans that they've got going forward, they've made a load of changes, and going from being with Öhlins for a number of years, switching back to shower suspension.
Right. So
they've changed riders, changed products, changed material, changed direction with where they're going with the bike. And
do you communicate with Kami?
I talk with Kami, not so much, to be fair, but I talk to Japan a lot.
Right.
So their bosses that run that also report into the people I talk to in Japan. So Yamana, who's in charge of motorsports, and then Sato, who looks after the HRC or World Superbike team. Obviously, Takumi is riding under Sato-san with HRC, and Rio under Yamana under Motorsport.
Right.
So there's lots of communication there, because I'm obviously looking to acquire some parts and test some parts so that we're all going down this route rather than going all over the place.
Yeah.
I've been wanting to try and utilize one of their swing arms, for example, but now they're moving to shower and all the changes, it doesn't really cross over to what I've got and what I can do.
Yeah.
And there's some components on the bike that I'd like to use and like to do, but the rules don't allow me to do that within BSB.
Yeah.
So, but it's understanding what's out there and what they're trying to achieve with the changes that they've made to the bike. And could that direction work with us in Superbike?
Do you know if for example, just complete hypothetical situation, but if Japan, Honda called you up next week and just said, a change of plan, we're re-changing things around, and say Rio and Takahashi are going to satellite team in World Superbikes, but you've still got 2 bikes on the grid, and let's pretend no other BSB riders were signed up right now. So like you've got all of the Superbike riders in Superbikes up for grabs. Which 2 riders from the current Superbike crop would you put to fill them 2 spaces?
I tell you what, open that up to any class on the super sport, anyone. Who would you pick, like, throughout the whole fields?
And you can include, because it's rumoured Haslam and Sykes are back as well, although that hasn't been announced, you can include them too as well.
Hopefully it's out by then.
That's an interesting one, isn't it? I'm either going to offend somebody or I'm going to... No. If you had a clean sheet and you just say, right, I'm going to take... So if you're going to pick some riders that you're going to think, right, he can go out there, Haslam coming back into it. He's going to be strong. He's determined. He's like a little terrier, isn't he?
Mm-hmm.
So, it'd be one you'd put on there for sure. And you're going to give a younger rider an up-and-coming shot at it. So there's quite a few in there, really.
See, that goes back to one of our first questions. How hard is it to pick someone?
It is hard, but that's what he's saying. You're looking at it, as you said earlier, do you want that rider to work with over a period, or do you want that rider to go, right, we're going to go now? And
like Haslam would be very much,
yes.
you sign him top money and you would expect results type of thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But, putting somebody like Skinner on it.
Right.
Would you have liked to have do you think it's a good move, Skinner, to stay in Superbikes? Are you happy about that? Or would you have liked to have seen him have opportunities in either, say, Moto2 or World Supersport?
So MotoGP direction is moving to prototype. Supersport is staying in production. He's come through from into what you say now, production racing. If that's, he's at a pinnacle point this next year or so. He's got to decide, does he want to go production racing or prototype racing? If he wants to go prototype, get off into MotoGP as quickly as you can.
Yeah.
Because it's a very different arena. For me, him staying on a superbike, I think not going to hurt him. He's a talented young rider. And I think he'll develop and be strong.
Going with the premise that Sykesy and Haslam are going to be in BSB,
which is just a rumour yet again.
Yeah,
just a rumour yet again.
Pick. Let's have your predicted showdown for next year. Top 8.
Oh yes, come on. Well, it's got to be Glenn.
We'll stick Glenn in there. Obviously, you're going to say Glenn top 8.
On,
so you've got
Glenn.
7 more.
Well, you're not going to rule out Jason. You're not going to rule out Mackenzie, are you?
Yeah, so that's top 3.
You're not going to rule out, for sure Haslam's going to be in that hunt.
Yeah.
He's going to be in there. Sykes, he's not going to come back and want to finish behind 8th, is he? Hickey, he's gone strong. Still put him in there. Two more.
You've got Tommy Bridewell still left. Iden.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. I've got 5 more riders that I could put in there, but all given on there because look at Tommy, look at Andrew Irwin.
Fuck it, like you say, the list just gets stronger, doesn't it?
Kyle Ryden and Bradley Ray will be strong on the Yamahas. I personally think.
I've got an idea. What happens if they opened up the showdown to the full grid? Is that an idea? Is that a concept?
Haven't they done that before?
Wait, back at the years ago. Yeah.
What were you going to say about Bradley Ray and Kyle?
Yeah, I think the move to the different machinery. The move into the Yamaha. The Yamaha's done an incredible.
They have, haven't they?
Job this year, but also you got the jockeys, you got the riders, you got the team, you got the bike.
Yeah.
And we've seen this so many times in the past where...
Would you... So in that, you've still got Jackson, Skinner,
I know, that's what I'm saying. Skinner, Buchan, you've got another 5 or 6 riders on top of your 8 that you're not offending by not saying, but you're asking for 8. I think, well, hang on a minute, I've still got those there that are all potential guys. That
and we still haven't mentioned Brooksy.
No, that's what I'm saying. He hasn't got a ride yet, has he?
Brooksy.
Has he?
I don't know if he's signed yet.
No.
It's all rumours.
It's all rumour mill. It's all rumour.
Brooksy, look what a year he's had this year. What a tough year he's had. But again, he's going to bounce back and he's going to be strong. It's like I said, it's a tough question really, and a harsh one in a way because you're not meaning to be
derogatory
or belittling anybody, but it is very
wide open, isn't it?
And if you were to turn on who's going to be your top 3, there's even a tougher one.
Yeah. Obviously, you've your other 3 riders that you've got signed up for next year. What are your aspirations for that? Like realistic goals and aspirations for Tom, Rio, and Takashi?
So Takashi and Rio is certainly to be up in that top 8 consistently, week in, week out. For Tom, if his first sort of challenge, if you like, for the first 3 to 4 rounds is to finish races, he's got to finish races to understand where he is and develop with it. He's come off the back of the Superstock. His only DNF was at Alton Park round 1 and really came back too early from suffering with COVID and everything else. Other than that, his racecraft, he's been able to sort of move forward in a race rather than be there and drop back. So, for me, if he can continue like that into Superbike, then he has a great start. For Glenn, like I said, for Glenn, all I want to see Glenn is Glenn being at the sharp end week in, week out. That's where we need to be. So we've got a development with Tom.
Yeah.
And we've got this with Glenn. And we've got a development with the 2 Japanese, Rio and Takumi. And it's all about moving this way. This is a sharp end. That's where we're all trying to head.
You've got to juggle a lot when you think you've got to throw in the Northwest, John McGuinness, you've got to throw.
It's quite like Glenn's job's quite like he's got to have wide shoulders kind of thing, hasn't he? Because he's got a lot There's a lot going on where there's a lot kind of expected really from him in terms of...
There is, but he needs the support as well. You know, he's got to have the support from Tom, Maria and Takumi when we're trying things and testing things with the bike.
Yeah.
Can't be left all to Glenn.
Yeah.
And Glenn test, run, make the decision, make it and race. We've got to have that collectively together, because if we're all going off like this as a team, it's going to be a tough year.
Yeah.
So as much as it's so important, you know, having track time and being able to test, develop and test components, but you want to be able to turn up at a round and hit the road running, knowing that you're going to have small changes to progress into the weekend, and make sure, try and have a rider that's consistently quick rather than just having a one lap wonder or 1 or 2 laps quick and then the remainder's a significant drop, because that's not going to be strong in a race.
Yeah. In terms of, obviously you mentioned Skinner in terms of that age range, but that's like older than 20. Do you keep an eye on the younger classes?
Yeah.
Is anyone of the younger kids, like sort of early teens, mid-teens, that you've got your eye on that you think's got potential? Or do you not want to give that your secrets?
Share it. Let the other team bosses. Get him.
For me, it's, you know, watching them on track, watching them how they are, because they all handle themselves so differently at that age. And, you know, at the end of the day, they're, you know, 14, 18, and they've got a lot to learn and develop. But watching the youngsters on track and watching their racecraft gives a lot away, you know. And like I said, there are a number of riders out there, but unfortunately, that age group, to suddenly moving on 4 years, a lot can happen. They can get fed up with racing and drift off into something else and lose interest and lose that passion. And you've got to have that passion, that motivation and that drive to do it week in, week out at that young age, because it's a long time, isn't it? When you think 14, they're in the Talent Cup.
Yeah, of course,
you know, and you think by the time they get onto a bigger bike, that's going to be still another 5-6 years, isn't it?
Yeah, you've got a lot of growing up to do between there and then.
A lot of growing up and a lot to take on.
So going into this season, is the next time that you're out with the lads, is that official BSB testing, or have you got anything else lined up?
Trying to do some tests in Spain in February, March, but COVID permitting and all sorts of things causing us a bit of grief. Trying to do a roads test because we want to do a test with the kit electronics on the superbike. So we want to run that, basically pretty much how Tom ran his Superstock, but on the superbike.
Now take it, you run Dunlop tyres on the roads as well?
We're just looking at all our options at the moment, whether it be Dunlop or whether it be Pirelli.
Right.
See what the hardest thing with us with moving to Dunlop just to go to the roads is to race this bike has only had Pirellis in it. And then to go and turn up and just put Dunlops in it.
Yeah, it's a different ball game again, isn't it?
Has McGuinness ever ran with Dunlop?
Years ago, but he's a Dunlop man.
He's Dunlop man. He's ridden Pirellis, obviously, in the Ducati.
And Glenn runs Metzeler's in the roads, doesn't he?
Yeah.
So that's an interesting dynamic.
He
has been, hasn't he, on the Paul Bird bike? Yeah, he's always been on the Metzlers. Interesting.
Some big decisions to make, eh?
I'm glad I'm not in your seat, I'm telling you.
So next few months, just getting everything ready, getting all the bikes stripped down, getting them all prepped.
It's getting the bikes ready, getting the team ready, a bit of a shuffle around, a couple of people leaving, still recruiting, still looking for mechanics and things like that now. Hence this afternoon I've got something to sort out.
What do you have in terms of jobs? Because there's plenty of people that listen to this that are in that sort of market. So what do you have?
Chassis mechanics is an area. We, looking for part-time, full-time people. Obviously had 2 of our staff leave and move on to do other things with other teams.
Right.
So, wish them all the best for future. And it's just, trying to again develop and bring younger people through again, because we've got 2 younger people starting with us for next year. And again, that's again about developing and bringing a younger mechanic involved, like we've done in the past. We've done that quite a few times over the years.
Is that kind of like an apprenticeship scheme that you run?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
And are you looking for people like yourself when you were like 17, trying to find the next half?
It's trying to find
motocross tracks.
It's trying to find youngsters that are interested in bikes and working on them.
Yeah.
That in itself is quite a challenge.
What's the biggest qualities you look for in like when you first interview somebody, that when you're looking for someone to fit into the team, what is it like? What's the quality that you're most
interested in? I think you can tell with them if they've got the passion to be involved in working with motorcycles. We've had people from university that have been on a mechanical engineering course and decided we've taken them on to do a work placement. And it turns out that apart from going to the college, that was the first time in anything to do with bikes, and it's clearly a tough challenge. It's going to be a huge, tough challenge for them, but, handling spanners and handling different components and
because that's borderline one of the easiest part of the jobs, isn't it? It's the stress, it's the hassle, it's everything around it that you need that atmosphere to adapt to, isn't it?
Yeah.
More than anything, but that's my opinion. But I'm just a pilot.
A lot of youngsters do not want to get involved in bike racing.
Right.
There's a lot that do,
but they want to be on the bike.
Yeah, potentially.
Mm-hmm.
But we're looking. We've got 2 or 3 ideas. We've got a couple of people starting with us in January, and take it from there.
So, if job opportunities come up at Honda, what's the best way for like our listeners to look for that? If
send a CV in,
right?
Yeah.
Just get on the Honda website and go down that route.
Get on the website, send a CV in.
It's a great.
Right.
I've got to say, like, I think being involved, like heavily involved in racing since I was a young lad, it's such an education to life. Like the people you meet, the places you go, the experiences you have. It's like for me, I've done loads of things in my life, like in different areas. Being involved with the racing stuff is just like
it's an eye opener.
I think so. Yeah.
But you've had some massive highs and lows.
Yeah.
All the way through, and
I think everyone's done that.
and what else in life gives you some of the challenges and the opportunities you've had?
Mm-hmm.
What other aspects? What else do you do that you enjoy so much?
Mm-hmm.
I've got loads of friends that earn very good money in the jobs they do. A lot of them don't like their jobs. So,
I bet you feel very fortunate in that respect.
I feel very fortunate.
I thought he was about to say I'm one of them lads.
No, I am. I am.
Love it.
I'm very fortunate to have the opportunity. And
Joe, just one random memory's just popped into my head there is, do you know the 2020 year when me and Tom were battling for the Superstock Championship, and it was like halfway through the season, it's a second race at Silverstone, and my engine
covered in oil.
Yeah, went bang in warm up, and we had like 2.5 hours to get an engine out of another bike and into mine. So it was like dead last minute, and there was there was one tiny thing that was like a cap came off or something. There was something, and on basically like the first lap of the race, I went to break into the chicane and my foot slipped off, and I thought that was weird, because the engine went that morning. I thought I might have just had something on my boots. I just continued anyway the whole race. It was only a tiny bit of oil, but at that speed it was covering, and I managed to make it to the end and like finished second in that one. And I remember getting into Park Fermain, pulling up, and obviously everyone was complaining about it. Tom came in furious, covered in oil, and Piggy had a little cloth, and he was quickly down on pipe. And because you were to the right and you were looking down in like disbelief because the whole bike was just like wet, and Piggy was quickly like on his knees trying to rub as much of the oil off as possible. But that did actually turn out to be the pivotal, like the difference between winning the championship and not winning the championship for me. So it's it was one of those.
The thing is, it's from there, you turn around and look to anybody that's behind you. What's your worst fear when you are following a bike and you're suddenly being covered by oil?
Well, there's a few, isn't there? But
that's the thing with all of it, is that when a rider in, say, whoever it is behind, knows that he's following somebody, he's got oil coming over him.
It's horrendous, yeah.
He's just thinking, am I about going down now, or that person's going to...
Well, look, To be fair,
That's the only.
I was waiting that whole race because obviously I had no idea how severe the leak was. So I was just looking for the flags, and I knew that if it was severe, the race control would have the shit hot with the flags. So I was sort of put it in their responsibility. But the fact that they didn't pull the flags out was very lucky for me, I guess. And it's one of them things, at any point I was aware that if there was a problem, it could have just dumped it onto my rear tyre and I could have
gone down anyway.
I could have high-sided it, flat out in fifth gear going around things. So, but that was a risk I was willing to take with the cost benefit of having the championship up for stake. And when you look back,
paid off.
It's crazy the risks that people are willing to take. But when you're that passionate about, and we all are that passionate, and the whole game is about winning at the end of the day. And it's one of them things. I could have looked back and that could have been the worst decision of my. If it could have went wrong, and it could have been the worst decision of my life. But everything's a risk.
You have no feedback from the tyre at all, so it wasn't even remotely getting on your tyre.
No, it wasn't going on the tyre. No.
That's we all know.
As soon as it goes on the tyre, you start having those moments. You think,
but then you know, don't you? Like,
and it's look now. If you crash a bike now, you can't pick it back up and start off again. Look at the amount of times where they have done that in the past and carried on and
well, that actually started with, can you remember the Finnish lad who was riding for Tony Scott in Supersport? So he crashed at Brands Hatch, and it was the morning of a race day, and he covered the whole track in oil. And then they started a race, and about 10 people crashed at Graham Hill. The track, obviously there's no way of drying up the oil. Once it's wet, it just spreads everywhere. Then they restarted the race, crashed again, and they had to cancel the race day, and all of the crowd, there might have been 30,000 people, had to go home. And you think, so obviously that rule got brought in for a very, very good reason, for the safety.
Totally.
But it's weird and wonderful sport. Have you got any more quick fire questions?
Not a one. Not a one. But obviously from my side of things, thank you very much for coming on and sacrificing your time on a 29th of December.
I've got a quick one. In terms of your bucket list, what's left? What's left that you would really like to achieve before you retire?
That's too far away to think of that one.
That's years away. What would I like to achieve? What would I like to do? Or anything.
Well, I did mean in the sport, but I'll open it up. You just pick.
No, that's two questions now. So what would you like to achieve in your job? And the second one is in your life.
So I'd like to obviously win a few more championships for Honda and develop, current riders. I think, I wouldn't be here if I didn't want to do that. I don't know. And secondly, what would I like to do? I'd love to do a parachute jump.
Right.
Because I'm frightened of heights.
Right.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you know how many people will be listening to this going, like, get it booked up, get it booked up?
It's good. It's one of the things
party one day.
Things off. Would you do a solo jump or a one where the person does the shoot for you?
I'd like to be attached to something all the time.
A professional.
A tandem.
No, it's just that, I've done bungee jumps over the years to try and help me with it. And it's, once you get over a certain height, it's okay. Mm-hmm. But as you get close to the ground, then that fear gets in. So it's...
I've actually, Dom's done his, but I've signed up to do I've never done a tandem jump, but I've signed up to do my first 3 solo jumps. So I've done all the training for it.
Have you done, right?
I'm just ready for a clear day. Me and my friend Lundy went down, and so I paid for the first 3 jumps. I'm definitely doing them, but that's without basically you jump with 2 people next to you,
right?
And then when you get to 6,000 feet, you do your drills, pull out, and you learn all your reserve drills and everything, and then you have to steer down and control everything yourself, and then flare it at the last minute. So I've done all my training. I know what I'm doing, but I've got that.
Jump out the plane, Chris.
I've got that to look forward to soon.
Right, I'll be following you then. I want to see this. I want to see.
Yeah.
You can have a camera on board as well.
Do you know what? You have to do something like 3,000 jumps before you're allowed a camera on yourself.
Is that
That's
right?
just a set thing in this country. You're not allowed to film yourself, but the instructors have cameras, so you can buy the footage remotely. But you have to do some, I think it is 3,000 jumps before you're allowed to put a camera on yourself.
Wow.
Yeah, but the mad thing about this course is you can go to a level 8, right? Then after level 8, you can jump out the plane as much as you want by yourself. Then there's a separate course for packing your chute. Then after that, you can buy your own chute and just do whatever. But yet you need to do 3,000 camera jumps before you're allowed to do it. It's mental, isn't it?
It's an awesome thing. It sounds quite radical. Like, my parents know nothing about it, so when I said I was going to do it,
Your
they
dad
were
listens to
really
this, you know?
nervous. And like the day that I was, because we were hanging around waiting for the weather to clear, and like when I got home, they'd been nervous all day. It's not, statistically, it's not dangerous, but obviously it's a crazy thing to do, to jump out of an aeroplane. But there's that many safety things in place. Yeah. I mean, do you know, for example, if you jumped out and you blacked out, you've got a device in your back that once it gets to an unsafe level, it automatically releases. So if you did nothing at all and just panicked, it would pull out, and you would still be doing like 30 mile an hour when you hit the ground if you didn't do the things properly. You wouldn't die, but you would hurt yourself type thing. But it's there's that many, and also you've got a reserve. So if you get crossed up and things, you just pull off and that shoots off, and then you've got another one.
It's just the height thing that gets me. I've climbed Sydney Harbour Bridge, and going across and going up through the road was the worst part. My legs were just like jelly. Once I was up here, because it's so far away, it's that perception of it being 20 foot, 30 foot, whatever that, or climbing up a ladder. Going up a ladder on the end of the house, I'm bloody useless at.
Really?
Terrible. Terrible.
Yeah, you can go to extreme heights.
But extreme heights, I'm okay.
That's mental.
Or if you got on the edge of a building and looked over, that would still do me, because I'm on something and I'm looking over. But if you're way up high, that perspective, it's very different. It's something that plays on.
That parachute jump would be totally fine for you. I'm not just saying.
Until I got a few thousand feet from the ground, and then it sort of dawns on you.
That's a big grass field. You've got nothing.
But anyway, that's something I've always.
I'll tell you when we'll go to do our jumps, because you can't actually pay just to do a tandem and no training. They do everything for you, so it's like
come along and watch.
It's unbelievably safe to do a tandem. You're jumping with someone that's done like 10,000 hours. The chances of it going wrong is virtually zero. Like. Yeah. It's just about that exposing yourself to that fear. But fair play to you if you are afraid of heights, to like challenge yourself, because a lot of people just avoid things that they don't like. So
bungee jumps, done loads of bungee jumps, and
you'll have to do the parachute jump now, because we'll have to catch up with.
There's something I'd like to one day.
Yeah. Well, we're going to see you in a year from now, before next season, and we expect you to do a jump. Absolutely brilliant, but not. Thank you so much for your time. It's been absolutely brilliant. And good luck for the season ahead of you. Don't work too hard, which is not going to happen. You're going to work your ass off as normal.
Yeah, huge thank you, obviously, for your time. Really nice to see you. Massive thank you to our sponsors, Colchester, Kawasaki, and to our patrons. And we'll be back sometime soon. We've got a tour booked in. So myself and Dom, we've got another podcast in between, but myself and Dom are going over to Northern Ireland.
Anyone you can recommend?
Couple of weeks, and we've got Jonathan Ray is definitely lined up, but then we've got a few others in the pipeline. Who would you suggest?
Get over there and see the Owen twins.
Yeah,
get the two of them in.
We've had them in before.
Well, over there in Ireland,
it'll be different crack.
Nah, you enjoy it, Jonathan. That'll be good with Jonathan.
Mint, absolutely mint.
Well,
right, brilliant. Thanks for much opportunity. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
Take care.
Click, buy, deliver. With remote purchasing from the 2-time Motorcycle News Dealer of the Year, Colchester Kawasaki. Proud sponsors of Chasing the Racing.